Good to have you here, 3 and Out on this Monday. So much to get to as we head into the final few days of March, the NCAA tournament down, and then there were 4. And, of course, we all know who some of those 4 are. North Carolina and Duke, Kansas, and Villanova. And, again, my bracket was trash from a while back, but I know in our bracket challenge presented by Coach's Corner, there are 5 who have a chance to win this thing. So everybody else has pretty much been eliminated. Their champion is out, and they're not going to make up enough points to get there. Unbelievable tournament thus far. And, again, what's to come this weekend might be the craziest of all the crazy out there as far as this tournament has been concerned. And that's with, St. Peter's making a run to the Elite Eight. You've seen all kinds of stuff happening out there. And at the end of the day, you get Kansas, blue blood college basketball program. Villanova, while maybe not on the level of the Kentucky, Kansas, and others, has won championships and won one relatively recently over North Carolina. And then you have North Carolina Duke, which, fellas, oh, by the way, are playing each other in the Final Four. As BJ, you said right before we came on, you're like, the irony of all ironies. You've never played each other. All the Duke Carolina games are always on national television because, everybody digs it. And of all the ironies, it's Coach K's last year. North Carolina smacked him down in the final home game, senior day there at Cameron. And now they play for the right to not only go to the championship game, but deny your biggest rival a chance to go to the championship game. This has got like the makings of everything coming up this weekend in the Final Four.
It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy when you think about the fact that if you were to sort of draw up a movie script, right, for the end of Coach K's career or college basketball execs, the NCAA tournament, if they could say, what's the best case scenario we could have for just drama, theater, the storylines being so obvious, it would be, yeah, Coach K's got to make a run at a national championship. And who's he going to run into in the Final Four? North Carolina. And like you said, Kevin, you thought the door was closed on that rivalry with Coach K back in that final game at Cameron Indoor, where North Carolina really pulled away, won that game by double digits, controlled it for the vast majority. And then here you are, and 2 programs that are been separated by 7 miles. They've never played before in the NCAA tournament. And then they just happened to meet up in Coach K's last season with a spot on the national in the national championship game on the line. It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. Would have loved to have seen St. Peter's obviously advance, but you look at this matchup. People are already saying this is one of the biggest college basketball games ever. Coach K has made 12 appearances in the Final Four, the most of any coach. And if he wants to go to a national championship game here to ride off into the sunset, he's got to beat his arch rival North Carolina, who's playing great, by the way they finished the season. We're going to hear about this all week. This is stuff you can't make up. Then Duke, North Carolina in the Final Four. Could it be Coach K's? Well, if they lose, it will be. But how does this play out for Coach K? Just amazing how this is all falling into place.
It's really getting on my nerves. I mean, Coach K is a guy. Listen, Coach K is one of those guys to where never met him, but you feel like you know him, right? You feel like you know him with the facial expressions, with the prestige, with the tradition, with the championships. And I'm just happy it's happening this way. Hubert Davis, remember when he, got the head coach's job, from Coach Roy Williams, and we was thinking, man, is North Carolina going to even be competitive? Because usually, even though you was in the program, they're going to go through some growing pains. Last game of the regular season, North Carolina was like, I don't care nothing about these tributes. You're going to we serving up fresh ales down here in Chapel Hill, and we finna give you this one. Michael Jordan had to get past the Pistons, right? Right? When you think about, certain people had to get past certain things. A guy like Peyton Manning had to deal with, Tom Brady. Certain teams have to deal with certain teams, BJ and Kevin, to be able to say, hey man, I've arrived. You're on the same road, Tobacco Road. North Carolina, they be like, hey man, how you feel about Coach K? Who? They don't talk about him over here. But I will say this though. If he does lose, this is poetic justice like no other. Because if you go to Duke, there's a certain narrative about if you go to Duke. If you go to North Carolina, there's a certain narrative if you go to North Carolina, and the two do not mix. BJ, Kevin, North Carolina, please do this for the world. Because
but let me ask you guys this, because they already did, to your point, right? Everybody thought that was it.
But
Coach K's last game.
You beat him twice.
That's what I'm asking, is Coach K's last game in Cameron, nobody thought Duke was going to lose, right? You have all the stars there. You win, and you win going away. And from a North Carolina standpoint, if you're a North Carolina fan, certainly a player, whatever, a part of the program, you're looking around going, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Coach K's last game, the Coach K, showcase, and we won. How much of this, if you're a North Carolina fan or, with the program, is it, man, this is an opportunity to beat them in the Final Four versus, we had it, and now we have to do it again. That's going to be tough.
It is going to be tough, but I will say this once again. I'm noticing a lot of fans that didn't go to Duke talking about this weed stuff when it come to Duke. They went to teams like Vanderbilt, Georgia, LSU, this weed stuff. Ty Gurley, listen to me. Yes, you grew up in North Carolina. I know you are confused because right now you saying, what? I'm from North Carolina. So I get to pick, Duke. No, you went to Georgia. All right? Coach K is the greatest or one of the greatest, right? Because a lot of great coaches came through college basketball. But he needs to go away. And it needs to be North Carolina. Because listen, the fan in me, I can appreciate greatness. I can. But I am sick of Coach K. I really, really am. Because the thing about it is, right, when you hear somebody talk about it, it's like this, what do you mean? He's the greatest. No, he's gotten beat. He already got a freaking, arena with his name on it. I get it. But listen, I never ever thought it would be a guy named of Hubert Davis. Hubert, if you're listening, I know you are.
Done a great job.
Listen, he has. Get him out the way. Because the thing is, Kevin, we got young children coming up. They know nothing about these rivalries. If your child, BJ, if your children want to go to Duke and North Carolina, they end up being, McDonald's All-American basketball players. This is the ultimate recruiting right this weekend. Duke, North Carolina are trying to go to the national championship. This is bragging rights for life. So all I'm saying is you don't want to be on the losing end because you're going to have to hear about this forever. Plus, no matter what, Coach K's going on with his life. So if he wins, he goes to the national no matter what happens. But if he loses, that sob story is going to be beautiful to watch. And I can't wait because I think if anybody can do it, I think it's UNC.
I mean, the storylines on both sides are amazing, but you're right. This has been is this Coach K's last game for, 4 rounds now, and we're going to get it big time leading into Saturday. And it almost feels like the other game is like the consolation game.
Yeah.
Like Kansas, Villanova, appreciate it. Glad you guys made it here, but can we just get, Carolina, Duke? And it seems like in this kind of game, it's going to come down to the last minute where, it's the right to move to the national championship. It's you eliminate your rival in the tournament. First time you've ever met. I mean, I think the biggest job both Hubert Davis and Coach K have this week is to prepare their team to just play a basketball game. Because I know Duke said, well, going into it, we didn't think about it being Coach K. There's no way to avoid it. It's the Final Four. It was going to be big. Anyway, it's the Final Four against your hated rival. You're going to hear about this all week. And how bad do you want to win for the folks in Chapel Hill? And how bad do you want to win for the folks in Durham? How bad do you want to win for Coach K if it's his last game? And how bad do you want to, not let Coach K win his last game?
But to that end, Kevin,
yeah.
Duke's players, coaches, the Duke program gets a second chance, right? Because you were going to have that Duke Carolina. And look, you're talking about
chance, but
yeah, right. But you're talking about just an all-time great resume that cannot be impacted. I mean, come on, Coach K, doesn't matter how he goes out, one of the best to ever do it. But if you're Duke, you lost that game at home. You were a heavy favorite. Everybody was there. The stars were out, and you lost.
Wait.
And now you get another chance.
This is what it's really about. People ain't saying it. Duke basketball has 5 national championships. North Carolina has 6. So they're doing this for more than just, you do not want to lose UNC. Duke goes on and ties y'all. Now you got 6. So as much as we make it about Duke, UNC got 6. UNC got Mike. But if UNC loses and then Duke goes on and win, you mean to tell me Coach K ties North Carolina? He walks out. Oh, my.
You're talking about never-ending bragging rights, rivalry, argument. And that, again, if you were North Carolina and you saw it on Twitter, you saw it in the blogs and the media, you had the bragging rights for the end of Coach K's career.
Yep.
Well, now, if you want to hold on to that, you got to do it again, and you got to do it again in the Final Four. It's just like we were saying,
almost met in the ACC tournament, and that didn't come to fruition.
Like we were saying in the show meeting, though, it's just amazing. Duke and North Carolina have never played in the NCAA tournament. Coach K's last season, they play in the Final Four. Like, you can't make this stuff up with sports.
You gotta love it. I'm loving it. I think sometimes too when people ask why do we love college rivalries, because it brings out the pettiness in us. Like the old question is, what would you rather have, your team win or your arch rival lose? You have to think about it because you cannot stand your arch rival. You want them to lose every single time. But UNC, once again, UNC is doing what the Braves did. Braves had to beat the Dodgers for the whole world, not just for the Braves. UNC. Look, I got recruited by UNC in high school. You know, Duke said I wasn't smart enough. He said I needed a 4.0. I had a 3.9.
Do you think most people are not only rooting for North Carolina, but like clearly rooting for North Carolina?
Yes, BJ. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about. Didn't I talk about this last week? Where it was, unless you're a Duke fan, like you've heard enough about Duke. You don't want Duke to win, and so unless you're just the guys like it would be a movie script. Well, I mean, how many movie scripts are we going to get? It's like you had Stetson Bennett movie script. The Braves finally win a World Series with players that were not on the team up until the last 2 months of the season, playing huge roles, kind of that movie script. I mean, how many of those are you going to be? Matt Stafford finally wins the Super Bowl, movie script, with the way that happens. So I don't know. We'll see. If Coach K goes out on top, it will probably be the most unbelievable thing you could ever even make up, right? I mean, because the way I look at it, it is. You talk about just something you would say that makes us okay. So the winningest current basketball coach, I don't know if he's past John Wooden. He's not the all-time wins leader in college basketball. I don't think.
I will double check.
You could double check on that. He might be. So he's got the most Final Four appearances. He's coached for like 700 years, and in his final season, he goes out with a championship.
How old do you think Coach K is, Kevin? How old do you think he is?
Are we taking a guess for real?
Yeah. How old do you think he is?
I believe he is in his late 70s. Like I want to say he's like 77.
He is 75.
Oh,
look at listen. Kevin knows.
I mean,
listen, Kevin knows two things. He knows old as hell coaches, and he knows populations. But city and county, you got to let me city or county because Kevin how. But no, I will say this though. When one guy's synonymous with one program, and it's like Coach K has done the unthinkable of, dude. Even if most people have never seen Duke play, and they know who Coach K is. That's how big of a brand and a name he is. But guess what? All good things must come to an end, Coach K. And hopefully Hubert and them UNC Tar Heels going to do it, because if Duke wins, we'll never hear about it. And then all the Georgia fans going to be like, go Duke, go Duke. No.
Kevin said it's the biggest basketball game in Georgia football history.
It is. It very much. Boy, I was like really wrong. BJ pulled up the list of all-time winningest coaches. Coach K is the winningest. I said, I'm going down the list trying to find where John Wooden is. I mean, the dude won 80 games in a row as a head coach. Am I just not seeing it? Where's he at? At any rate, Mike Krzyzewski, according to this, 1,200 wins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this, in all seriousness, and I'll ask you this now. Do you think this is the biggest basketball game last 20, 25 years? I hate saying the biggest one ever, but
yes.
Do you think this is the biggest basketball game in the last 20, 30 years?
Yes. I mean, BJ, I know you are a
potentially, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Because think about this. When's the last time the biggest rivalry in college basketball?
I know, yeah, I mean it probably is.
And Blue Bloods, biggest brands there is, not named UCLA, not named Kansas, or what may have you, not named Kentucky. And they meeting for it all to go to the national championship. This is the biggest. Listen, by us saying the big, it's not taking away other big ones. But Coach K versus UNC. Think about this. Roy Williams gone, and Hubert said, "I got you, Coach." Now, if Roy Williams would have been the head coach right now, we had to hear about that too. But hey, man, African American studies, whatever. UNC is here. Let's do it. Do it for everybody else. Listen. Do I get to be a UNC fan this weekend? Yes, because I'm doing it for the right reasons, not this old dumb stuff that everybody else doing. Talking about, man, I've been a Duke fan my whole life. Man, you go to Georgia, man. Stop with the nonsense. That's gonna be the next thing. Can you actively root for another college team when you are actively playing for a college team? Can you do that?
We'll continue to talk about this as we go throughout the week. Again, Saturday is going to be ridiculous when we get to that Duke UNC game, but we'll continue to talk about that. Braves continuing on spring training. Season opens a week from Thursday. Pitching staff has been on fire. We'll talk some college football as well with Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. A lot of spring practices going on. David Waters will join us. Gators Breakdown. We'll talk about that as well. And Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, will join us coming up in the final hour. We'll talk draft with him as he's got the Jags taking Aiden Hutchinson there at number 1. This is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll hear from Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. We'll talk some SEC spring storylines with him, and there's a lot of them out there as well. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But the Braves continuing on at spring training. They lead at 5-0 over Toronto. Not the full complement of the Toronto Blue Jays lineup, but really the compiled storyline here, BJ and Ben, is that the Braves pitching staff has been good. I think the Braves have the best record in spring, which doesn't mean anything. I will, clearly go out and say that. It doesn't matter what you do in spring. But coming into today's game, the starters' ERA was almost 1 even coming into today's game. And Spencer Strider pitched 2 2/3, didn't give up a hit, didn't give up any runs. So that's going to go a little bit lower as well. So BJ, spring, people talk about this lineup and how dangerous this lineup could be. Pitching has been really good, and you talk about guys making a case. And maybe it's just because the focus is there because it's a shorter spring training. You got to ramp it up, be ready to go. But Kyle Wright, Waskari Noah, Spencer Strider, Tucker Davidson, Kyle Muller, they've all looked really good. And these are all guys that are trying to basically vie for 2 spots in the starting rotation.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. And I agree with you. Spring training is spring training. Let's not go crazy that the Braves are 5-2, about to be 6-2. But you had a no-hitter into the 7th today. That's obviously with multiple guys. You're not, compiling a ton of innings, but Ian Anderson not giving up a run, Max Fried not giving up a run. I mean, you're talking about guys that have been very effective in, albeit limited outings. Charlie Morton has not given up a run. Kyle Wright, who you mentioned, has not given up a run. So I think the idea that Atlanta's going to have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, and I think that takes into account everything, the starters, the bullpen, the guys you just added, that's only been affirmed in my mind here in spring training. And I'm not totally sure that what you do if you're Charlie Morton matters a ton in spring. You're a vet. You've been a multi-time All-Star. But I do think, you mentioned Spencer Strider. I think your confidence very much matters. What you do in spring is a springboard for the rest of the year. Waskari Noah has gone 3 innings, has not given up a run. I think given that it looks like he's going to be the number 4 starter, that's big for his confidence, a big spring from Waskari Noah. So it has been great to see. I try not to go crazy with the stats in spring, but when guys who are good come out and play well, that only adds to the optimism around the season.
I mean, BJ, every season you say the same thing before the start of the season. You say you win with starting pitching. You said you win with starting pitching. Now, while this lineup has given the starting pitching an opportunity to come around, the thing about the Braves is they're dangerous top to bottom. They don't have any weaknesses. Kevin, I mean, when I see spring baseball, I just want to see guys out there getting fine-tuned. You always say, look, guys going to be working on their worst pitches. They're not out there it's not really about the stat line, but you try not, it's easy to not get too high and too low about the stat line, what it is with the Braves pitching staff. But if it was really, really bad, you'd be like, now, wait a minute now. I mean, because you understand you do this to go right into the season. But I will say every single group, from the lineup, to the starting pitcher, to the bullpen, everybody has come along the way to say, now we are finally, right, a strong point. There aren't a lot of weaknesses. And, I mean, I know we talk about the pitches, but I saw Marcell Ozuna out there, taking some swings today. You talk about a guy like when Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back. You talk about a guy like Mike Soroka, of course. Now, I mean, you want to get him back, but he doesn't have to rush.
Yes.
I think sometimes when you talk about what makes a great baseball team, it's not great baseball players, it's great role players. Atlanta got some great role players. That's good enough to be superstars if they was on, other teams. But I think the chemistry has come together. Kevin, you talk about the guys that are, vying for that 4th spot. You want to have competition all the time. Max Fried, man. I mean, Max Fried is coming to his own. Ian Anderson. We say Ian Anderson like this ain't Ian Anderson's 3rd year in the major. Like this is his 3rd year, and the guy's already. Hey man, I'm penciling his number 2 starter. Why? Because I've earned it. So I don't get too high too low with the Braves, but I think that it's a long season. You need every game is 106. You need every last one of them. But from what I've seen from the Braves, I'm very, 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 very hopeful. And I will say this. The Braves are pitching well when no one's talking about Freddie. Nobody. That's how well the Braves are pitching right now. I don't know if that's how it's going to be first game of the season when, Mr. Olsen steps up to bat. But I just think for what I've seen, Kevin and BJ, very, very hopeful about the season. Like I said, when Soroka, when Ronald Acuna, they can take their time coming back, even though I do think Ronald Acuna going to be in that DH spot. I like what I'm seeing right now. Hey, man, the Braves are not losing any momentum coming off that World Series win.
No, and again, a big lead up to the start of the season where they open up with the Reds, who have been, I say, depleted kind of their own doing. They've traded away a bunch of guys. So you have a series opener against Cincinnati, which you figure to have an opportunity to open up hot against a team that's not expected to do a whole lot.
Well, and I think the Braves been, like you said, from the additions. I know it's very difficult to lose Freddie Freeman, but from the guys you brought in to obviously what happened last season with the World Series, to the way you've been playing here in spring training, to I think just the general excitement level around the organization, there's a lot of optimism. And I am expecting a hot start. You mentioned opening up with Cincinnati. I mean, I think there's reason to expect Atlanta to hit the ground running here. And when you look at these starting pitchers, big reason why. This lineup's going to hit. We know that. And when Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back, it's without question one of the best lineups in baseball. This bullpen on paper is as good as it gets. I think if there was a relative question, it might have been the back end of the rotation, but Huascar Ynoa has been great. Kyle Wright has been great. Even Ian Anderson, Ben, who you mentioned, has been fantastic. Those three guys have combined to give up 0 runs so far in spring training. So I think the bullpen is what it is. We know it's awesome. The front end of the starting rotation, great. The back end of the starting rotation has solidified itself. I think as multiple guests have told us, Kevin, Ben, you need 6, 7, 8 at a minimum, guys you can trust to be starting pitchers. I think the Braves have that. But, yeah, it was cool to see they had a no-hitter into the 7th inning today, and that's really just a continuation of what we've seen all spring.
Yeah, a lot of positives to build on here if you're a Braves fan getting ready for the start of the 2022 season, which comes up in a little bit more than a week. Coming up in a little bit more in a couple of minutes here, Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, SEC Network, joins us. A lot going on around the SEC. He'll join us next here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Glad you were with us here on this Monday. If your bracket is still intact, bless you, because I think most people's are well gone after the wild ride, but it should be a fun Final Four for just classic programs, one with a chance to end their rival coach's career if it comes to fruition that way. So a lot more to get you on that subject, but we were efforting Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, and the SEC Network. A lot of storylines out there, and certainly BJ and Ben, you got Georgia, the defending national champions. I don't think anybody believes Alabama is going anywhere, and it seems like despite what recruiting games have been made, what coaching changes have been made, this and that, everybody is still chasing Alabama and Georgia at the end of the day in the SEC, and it still appears that everybody's got a little bit of a hill to climb if they're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that's well said. You know, a lot of power rankings are coming out, and you're starting to ask yourself who could be a sleeper in this division, that division. For as good as the SEC is, for as much depth as there is in the SEC, I think right now you're clearly talking about Georgia in the East and Alabama in the West, and I'm really not even sure that there's an argument for anybody else, right? I mean, out West, I know expectations are high for Texas A&M. I get that. LSU's got a lot of talent coming in. Brian Kelly, I get that. But in terms of matching what Alabama has with Nick Saban, the best coach in the country, you're bringing back the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, I think on paper, you're bringing back the two best players in the country with Bryce Young on offense and Will Anderson on defense, and two generational talents, guys that are amongst the best at their position ever. You switch over to Georgia, and I think the questions, if there are any, are relative for the defending national champions. I mean, maybe a depth chart spot or two along the offensive line. Defensively, you knew you were going to lose a lot of guys, but is the expectation that you're going to take a major step back? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Now, is it as simple as you replace Jordan Davis, Travon Walker, Nakobe Dean, Lewis Seen? No,
but
it's not that simple. But Georgia's got a defensive standard that maintains itself.
They have that, and as a couple of people point out, the schedule's very favorable. Like their defense may take a step back, but they're also not going to face a lot of offensive juggernauts, at least perceived, just juggernaut programs out there on your schedule. I mean, you got some of the SEC, but it would appear that Georgia's defense, even if it takes a step back, still going to do very well simply because, again, your schedule it's just very favorable.
And it's not like you lost everybody. I mean, I understand that the NFL draft is going to be a showcase of all things Georgia Bulldogs, but you look at this defense, Nolan Smith's going to be a preseason All-American, rightfully so, coming off the edge. Jalen Carter is going to be a preseason All-American, rightfully so, setting the edge. You think about Keely Ringo, interception, pick six to claim the national championship. In terms of a springboard into the next season, you can't do anything better than that, than literally a walk-off national championship interception return for a touchdown. So the recruiting rankings are what they are. Georgia has been handpicking 4 stars, 5 stars to come on the roster and play. And I think you're seeing some of those guys. There may be some new names. That's the fun of spring, right? And I think that's something that's happening everywhere across college football, not just at Georgia. Chris Gordy said, if you go to the LSU spring game, you better have a roster because they had so many transfer guys. And Georgia's not dealing with that a ton like everybody else is. But these are players that were recruited for a specific system, even though you lose Dan Lanning. I mean, every Georgia analyst we've talked to this spring, hey, is there going to be any schematic difference? No. Dan Lanning's gone to Oregon. It's going to be the same thing. The status quo remains. Now, will you be as dominant as you were throughout this season? Maybe not quite. But I think the expectations for Georgia defensively are immense. Stetson Bennett, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Stetson Bennett. What he did last year. I mean, how many teams in history have brought back a national championship winning quarterback who was the MVP of the title game and the semifinal game? I think there's a lot to like with Georgia. Preseason top 3 lock. I think Alabama's a preseason top 3 lock. And then everybody else kind of jockeying for position the rest of the way.
We have found Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, the SEC Network, joining us here on 3 and Out. Tony, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
And you come into this year, Georgia, the defending national champions. How good a shot are they going to have at defending that title, given they have a lot of losses, but obviously a lot of talent on that roster?
There is a lot of talent on that roster, but you know what? It's been interesting over the years as you watch us take a program like Alabama. I mean, Alabama's been in the situation where they've been the defending national champions a bunch of times, 6 times, I guess, under Nick Saban. And the question is, how do you handle it? It's one thing to say all the right words, but when it comes time to go to work and do the practice and all that, how does the University of Georgia handle this? To me, it's one of the most fascinating stories of the college football season. I mean, Georgia finally snaps a 41-year streak, and now they go in, and it's just a different mindset, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Tony, we were just talking about the guys that you lost defensively. You're going to see Georgia well represented in the first round of the NFL draft. What do you expect from Georgia defensively without Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean? Can they still be as dominant as they have been?
I don't know that they can be as dominant because you're talking about a generational defense. They're one of the best that Georgia, maybe the best Georgia has ever had, but they're going to be really, really good. And really, really good will win a whole lot of football games for you. Again, you're talking about a team with incredible amounts of talent. You mentioned the NFL draft. That will become very evident. It'll be one of the best first nights Georgia's ever had, if not the best. And so we'll have to wait and see. That's what makes football so much fun. We have all these questions, and then we start getting some answers.
Tony Barnhart joining us here on 3 and Out. On the other side, Alabama doesn't seem like they're going to suffer any fall off either. Are those still the 2 best teams, not only in the SEC, but would you say they're the 2 best teams in college football going into to the preseason?
Well, I would certainly say those 2 in Ohio State would be teams that you would have to look at. Clearly, Georgia and Alabama are the 2 best teams in the SEC, and they will be when we have media days in July. I think they will be. There's no question they will be picked to win the 2 divisions. But and people forget this about Alabama. Alabama was a relatively young football team last year, and Nick Saban did, I thought, one of his best coaching jobs to get that team to an SEC championship and a national championship game. So I think Alabama's going to be hard to handle this year.
Seems to be a lot of hype around Tennessee this spring, and understandably so with what their offense did last year, top 10 in the country. What is the next step for the Volunteers, and can they reach that this season?
Well, the next step is to continue to do what they're doing offensively with Hendon Hooker, who had just a marvelous year last year. Can they keep doing the offense, and does their defense get better? When you run as many offensive plays as Tennessee runs at the tempo they want to run them, sometimes that leaves your defense on the field too long. Can Tennessee handle that? And again, the next step for Tennessee, of course, is to beat somebody they're not supposed to beat. That's how you measure progress in the Southeastern Conference. Does Tennessee beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, like a Georgia, like an Alabama? We'll see.
And then Florida to that list as well. What are you expecting out of Billy Napier there in Gainesville? Is there a big rebuild to do? Are they still number 2 behind Georgia? What's he working with coming into their spring here, and where do you think they kind of slot in there in the East?
Well, they are still definitely behind Georgia. Here's the thing about the SEC East. There's no clear-cut number 2, because you're talking about Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe South Carolina being a part of that for the second spot, and that's going to be one of the more intriguing races for the fall. But I think, listen, Florida is going to bounce back in a hurry under Billy Napier, because he's relentless in recruiting, has a great offensive philosophy. The question is, can Richardson be an every down quarterback? Does he bounce back from his injury? Those are things we don't know yet, but Florida will be there sooner rather than later.
Tony, what are your expectations for former Oklahoma quarterback Spencer Rattler at South Carolina?
Well, there's no question about his physical ability. I mean, he was a starting quarterback at Oklahoma and a favorite, not a candidate, but a favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. So he's got skills. Now, can they take his skills and implement them at South Carolina? I think they will, and I think he'll have a big year. That was a tremendous get for South Carolina out of the portal, and so it's just a question of how you take his skills, which are really obvious, and translate them into what they want to do offensively. I think he'll have a good year.
Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, joining us. Tony, how do you evaluate teams in the transfer portal and how that's being used and how they're able to use the transfer portal? Because we see cases like Michigan State where you can improve yourself in a hurry. And also, there's obviously examples of guys you take in the transfer portal that don't pan out. How
Yep.
do you kind of evaluate teams that are heavy in the transfer portal and how it translates to what you expect from them moving forward?
Yeah, it's going to be a mixed bag as we start. I mean, the ones who are going to do best with the transfer portal are the teams that need to spot recruit somewhere. They need some, like Alabama needed another linebacker last year. They go into the portal, get Henry Toyo from Tennessee, or in the case you mentioned Michigan State, they got Kenneth Walker the third from Wake Forest, and they were a completely total football team. The issue, guys, if you have to rebuild your program year after year, in other words, you got to get 10 guys out of the transfer portal, that's going to be tough. And is it going to work sometimes? Absolutely, it's going to work sometimes. But it's going to be hard to make a living when you're rebuilding significantly. Your best hope is to build your program and spot recruit where there's a need from the portal. I think the most successful teams will do that.
Tony, when you look around the SEC this spring, is there a team that you think people aren't talking about enough that maybe could be a sleeper coming up later this fall?
I'm kind of curious about Kentucky. I mean, they lose Wan'Dale Robinson, their great receiver, but their quarterback returns. They got a new offensive coordinator from the 49ers. They won 10 games last year for the second time in 4 years. I'm just kind of curious to see if there's a drop off there. I think that's going to be interesting. How good is Texas A&M? They got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. If they do that, and with Haynes King coming back at quarterback, maybe they challenge. But to me, one of the most intriguing stories is what's going to happen at LSU with Brian Kelly. I mean, LSU's got players. That's never been an issue. So how does Brian Kelly bring his unique culture to Baton Rouge, and how quickly do they become a contender?
Tony Barnhart joining us. And Tony, finally, you mentioned Texas A&M. Are you a believer that Jimbo can break through and get over? I know he's got a national championship, but in that West, which is very tough, it's as last year showed, it's not just about beating Alabama. You got to survive the rest of the ride as well. Do you think Texas A&M and Jimbo can get over that hump?
I don't. If getting over the hump means he's going to win the SEC West, I don't see that. I can see them finishing second if they have a really good year, but I don't think anybody's going to knock Alabama out of that spot. But Texas A&M, what's going to happen at Ole Miss? Will Rogers is back at Mississippi State. Arkansas, man, how much do those people love Sam Pittman? So the SEC, second place in the SEC West and second place in the SEC East are going to be knockdown, drag-out battles.
Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, our guest here on 3 and Out. Tony, appreciate you making some time. Thanks so much.
Okay, you bet.
Tony Barnhart joining us here on 3 and Out, talking a little college football storylines galore around the SEC, BJ.
And I think LSU is one of those fascinating teams where a lot of talent went out. They were very active in the transfer portal, brought in Jaden Daniels to compete with Miles Brennan at the quarterback spot. Offensive and defensive lines, they were very active. This is a program that clearly, obviously, has been a national contender recently. What are the expectations internally? I believe they play Florida State in New Orleans to open the year. And then you're looking at a slate where you play, of course, the whole SEC West. Good luck with that. But I think LSU might be the most interesting team in the SEC this spring.
We've got more to come here on this Monday. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Love to hear from you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We're streaming live ESPNCoastal.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you along here, 3 and Out on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're making us a part of your day. Streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, and on your mobile device with the ESPN app. We'll get to take 3 around the corner. David Waters, Gators Breakdown, will join us next hour. Also, pro days going on all across college football the last couple of weeks, as well as we count it down towards the draft. And again, Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, will join us talking draft in the final hour. So, getting close to baseball, Final Four coming up. BJ, I know I talked a lot of trash. Our bracket challenge presented by Coach's Corner.
I'm done.
No, I'm done too, but by some miracle, you ended up like a couple of points ahead of me.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm like 0 for my last 8.
There's 5 people with a chance to win this thing in our ESPN Coastal Bracket Challenge who have not been completely eliminated with their champion. I think one person has Kansas. 2 people have Duke, and I think maybe somebody has Villanova. Maybe 2 people have Villanova. So it could be interesting.
I'm pretty sure my national title game was Gonzaga, Arizona.
That's who I had when they both lost. I just said I'm not looking, and I had to look today for the show. But Ben, how was your bracket?
I don't really talk about brackets because I think sometimes it's like it just really really like burns me up the fact that I had Kentucky. The one time I tried to pick Kentucky and the first round, there was one in there.
Your national champion lost in the first round. That's incredible.
Well, at the same time,
that's
they
amazing.
lived up to the moniker, right? I mean, Kentucky's known for one and dones, right? Well, they was, I mean, what you want me to do?
Maybe not that one and done. But.
Yeah, I mean, John Calipari, in the history of his 3 number 1 overall picks, he has a whopping 1 national championship.
He's got it.
No, he do have it. But I'm just saying, BJ, is that underachieving in your opinion?
See, not everybody's team can go back to back with the double national champion.
In your
maybe
opinion?
Maybe a little bit.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I don't really talk about bracket challenges, but Kevin, how hard was it for you to admit that BJ?
No, I'm not admitting anything. I'm just saying my bracket was a few points lower than.
That's called me winning and you losing.
Are you getting a prize? No.
It's a prize to be on the air with you and Ben.
There it is. I mean, if you won that 70-inch, would you give it to your boy?
Wings for a year, man.
So yeah, BJ's not going to take the tube. He'd take the food all day. I could have told you that. That would have been BJ's choice of the prize. We'll come back, take 3 around the corner. David Waters, Gators Breakdown, going to join us in hour number 2 as well, right here on 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Love to hear from you on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Also streaming live on ESPNCoastal.com and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you back here. 3 and Out, second hour of this Monday. So much to get to. We'll talk with David Waters, a little college football with him from Gators Breakdown Pro Day. Expectations going on out there as well. And we're setting up for a huge Final Four. Duke, North Carolina could be one of the best basketball games we have seen in recent history. One of the biggest ones, to say the least. Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, will join us. We're talking NFL draft with him coming up in the final hour. But first, fellas, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, good to have you on this Monday. Take 1. Is 15 seed St. Peter's the greatest Cinderella story ever?
Incredible story. The only 15 seed to advance to the Sweet 16. And you think about, the Elite Eight. Yeah, and you think about what they did. Kentucky, that is clearly one of the best programs in the history of college basketball. Murray State, who had, 3 losses. They were a 30-win team, and they beat Murray State. And then Purdue, with one of the best players in the country in Jalen Ivey, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick. You win that game, and that was a game where you made big shots, got big-time stops late. I mean, this team balanced, can score inside and outside defensively. They were able to kind of maintain their composure through all the chaos of these games. But I don't quite think they're right there. I mean, I think if you go back a couple of years, Loyola Chicago going to the Final Four, and you may say, oh, that's only one more. I get it, but I think with each level that you advance, there comes more of a mystique, right? And St. Peter's is in that conversation. You think about George Mason. You think about Loyola Chicago. You think about St. Peter's. If you want to talk about a one game, you think about UMBC beating Virginia a couple of years ago, the only 16 over a 1. There have been some incredible runs. You've had teams that are major conference teams make deep runs. But I think just off the top of my head, thinking about recent tournaments, you had Wichita State make the Final Four when it was in Atlanta last time. But I think off the top of my head, for me, Loyola Chicago and their run to the Final Four, where I believe they lost to Michigan in that tournament. But I will go with Loyola Chicago.
I mean, Loyola Chicago is great, but I think it is St. Peter's for the simple fact that, look, when you start talking about Kevin and BJ like a Cinderella, I mean, no one even knew what. Listen, I lived about 10 minutes away from Jersey City. Never heard of St. Peter's a day in my life, right? I mean, I know about Seton Hall. They're right there in West Orange, but I think what happens is I'm looking at recruiting. They're not gonna get no player in the top 100 in basketball. No one near no McDonald's All-Americans, right? But I think what happens is this is what makes college basketball what it is. You get in the tournament and anything can happen. We were talking about the Blue Bloods. Does it get bluer than Kentucky? And what they told Kentucky, get out of here. So that made everybody go, okay, these guys beat Kentucky. And they just kept going and kept going and kept going. They don't. What's the lady from Loyola Chicago? I mean Chicago, the lady that became like synonymous.
Sister Jean.
There is no listen. Who was synonymous with St. Peter's? They don't have they're the Peacocks.
Well, that's probably it.
I've seen more memes with Mark Wahlberg on the movie the other guys. Like, let me fly here. Let me just fly in this thing. St. Peter's represents what we love the most about college basketball is that's the underdog being able to say, all right, put us up against the best. When the head coach say, look, people gonna try to bang us down low. Nope. People gonna try to out-muscle us. Man, I got a bunch of kids from the Bronx, from Jersey. This is what they grew up. They grew up in Brick City and the concrete jungle. You think we care about a bunch of young dudes that grew up going to these real nice tournaments and AAU tournaments? I think it is St. Peter's because now, you start thinking about a team that's close to a St. Peter's that didn't get in because they don't got the prestige. They're doing it for more than just them. Just like Cincinnati kind of make us think that, the mid-tier programs get a chance to get the college football playoff. They have to do the unthinkable. And St. Peter's, listen, they broke up. Every bracket was broke up after the first week because of St. Peter's. But you look at what they was able to take nothing away from the George Mason, the Wichita States. But I just think we take a school in a place like most people don't even know what Jersey City is. They're like, that's in Jersey. But yes, that is in New Jersey, about as close as you can get to New York City. But for me, give me them Peacocks because I think they were shocking the world in a lot of ways this year.
I mean, that's right up there. I would say you've had a few Cinderella stories. I think I want to say like George Mason back in the day with Jim Larinaga. I think they might have been a 10 seed, so maybe not as far back, but they beat some really good teams. I'm not saying that St. Peter's didn't. You beat Kentucky, that validates you, right, in the tournament, regardless. So they're right up there with what they were able to do. 15 seed in the Elite Eight. And as Ben said, raise your hand if you even knew St. Peter's.
I mean, they might be. It's tough.
No, I'm saying,
It's
but
tough.
look, like a casual college basketball fan might be able to say, I've heard of George Mason before. I've heard of Valparaiso back in the day. I've heard of Loyola, maybe not Chicago, but I've heard of Loyola, Marymount, all those. Loyola, Chicago. Okay, I get it. Raise your hand if you didn't even like St. Peter's on the name. BJ, if I just came up to you and said, have you seen St. Peter's play basketball? You would say what? Division III? Right? I mean,
I would not have any
nobody
reference.
Nobody has any reference to them doing anything remotely of note in college basketball at the major level. And there they were at the Elite Eight level, getting it done. I think their coach, Coach Holloway, has already got a deal with Seton Hall, so he parlayed that into something big. And I think
was a great player at Seton Hall.
Yeah, I think some of those are like certain programs you see make that run, and then they become kind of a mainstay for a few years if you can keep that coaching staff together. So don't underestimate what a run to an Elite Eight can do. Look at what a Final Four run did for Loyola Chicago. I think they've been in the tournament, 3 or 4 straight years based off of that one run. And
so which one's the best in your mind?
I'm still going to say George Mason going to the Final Four because I think they weren't a bunch of nobody on that team went to the NBA. They really made it because I think they had 8 or 9 seniors on that team, and they just kind of outplayed everybody.
They lost to Florida, didn't they, in the Final Four?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they put together a good. I mean, so I'm going to say as a true Cinderella, I will go with that. That's probably everybody's going, you're stupid. And that's not a good example, but that's who I'm going to go with. Take 2. Albert Pujols is continuing on in baseball. He signed a 1-year deal with the St. Louis Cardinals, going home after more than a decade away, going to the St. Louis Cardinals. Could something like this ultimately happen with Freddie Freeman? And can you go home?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. You want to see Freddie Freeman in a Braves uniform again. And, of course, he has the long deal with L.A. that'll take him into his late 30s, and I'm sure it'll work out well for L.A., and the Braves have high expectations for Matt Olson. But I think if you fast forward, 6 years, and Freddie Freeman's a free agent again, even if it's in a very limited role. I mean, I don't know what the expectations are for Albert Pujols in St. Louis, but if you're saying, listen, we have a year of Freddie Freeman left in baseball or 2 years, I mean, who knows? Who knows? But I think if he could come back to Atlanta, Braves fans would enjoy that. That would probably be very meaningful to him. It's still kind of weird to look back on what happened and say, okay, the Braves wanted Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman wanted to stay with Atlanta, at least to some extent, and it didn't work out. And I think a lot of people, going back to when the trade was announced, were kind of shocked. And you even heard, I think Bud Ellis came on that week and said, yeah, maybe down the line you see Freddie Freeman back in Atlanta. So do I think it's possible? Yes. Now, it's impossible to predict the future 6 years from now, but I think there's a chance. And I think once kind of everybody relaxes from the trade, and you'll of course think about Freddie Freeman as one of the all-time great Atlanta Braves, and a chance to see him come back would be special.
I think it will. I really, really think it will. I think sometimes we forget how much these players really, really love these organizations. I know the business is gonna supersede everything else, but Albert Pujols signed a 1-year deal with the Cardinals is only right. I mean, most of the time that's the difference in baseball and other sports. In other sports, you sign a 1-day contract just to retire with that team, and they give you a couple of hours to go in, and people just love up on you. But I do think Freddie Freeman, you could tell how much the Atlanta Braves organization meant to him and how much he meant to the Braves organization. And obviously he's going to be missed. You hope that when he's done with the Dodgers, he decides to come back to the Braves, sign a 1-year contract, and he does finish it out, because everybody was saying a bunch of glowing things about him. You wish he didn't have to go. You wish it was able to work out, but Freddie Freeman just proves that the business is bigger than anything else. Adam Anthopoulos did all he could. He offered him the best deal they thought they could. The Dodgers came in and swooping them away. But yes, to answer the question, I do think a 1-year deal when he's close to 40 years old, hopefully he can finish out his career with them Braves.
Are we wanting this more than it is likely in your mind, or do you think this is...
I mean, it could happen. I mean, we see guys in the NFL sign the 1-year deals. I mean, as far as actually playing, I mean, keep in mind, there is a guy under contract for 8 years to play first base for the Atlanta Braves. So Freddie would have to come back as a DH. I think for the Braves to do that, you would hope his bat is still doing what it's currently doing, because he would be Well, after 6, he would be 38 years old. So if he doesn't come back until Matt Olson's contract's up, he'd be almost 40 or right there at 40. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I mean, obviously, Alex Anthopoulos, if he's still the GM, he does not get caught up in sentimentality. He tends to, what is the saying you like to throw out there? He is not out there in the business of altruism to be handing out contracts because they feel good.
He had the emotion.
He did, but did it allow him to make his decision? He felt bad about it. He still made the decision best for the ball club, as he saw it.
As he should. A GM's job is to put the best players in place to go out there and try to compete for a championship. He did,
free of emotion,
and he did. And it's not like he did not offer Freddie Freeman a deal. He just not didn't. And when you look at the deal that Freddie Freeman ended up getting, everybody was like, "Wait a minute, what?" So sorry that he didn't get that extra year, and the Dodgers are willing to give it to him, but Alex Anthopoulos did. And once again, he is not negotiating with his money. So people say, just give it to him, Alex. No, I just spoke to the bosses, and they say they will not go any higher than that.
Yeah, we're not just here to go grab a few more 20s off the money tree out back. Moving on, take 3. Which Braves player has impressed you the most here in spring?
Yeah, a couple of guys. I think Charlie Morton, yesterday going out and giving you almost 5 innings without a hit. That's what you want out of a guy that's a front-end rotation starter and is going to be a tone setter for you throughout the year. Thought it was great to see Vaughn Grissom be as productive as he was. Had 4 hits. That is tied for the team high here in the spring, along with Orlando Arcia and Marcelo Zuna and John Franklin. But 4 hits, that's only an 8 at bats. So 500 in that sample size. Had a couple of doubles in there as well. The OPS was over 1,200. So I think it's exciting when you see young prospects perform. So Charlie Morton for me was a good sign, and then I'll go Vaughn Grissom.
For me, I mean, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna go with Kinsley Jansen, and I could care less what he's doing right now in the spring. This is why. We talk about Matt Olson all the time about him being, Atlanta Braves fan growing up from Atlanta, Atlanta native. Mr. Kinsley Jansen, I learned something serious about him. I mean, from Caraco. Who else is from there? That would be Andrew Jones. Who did he grow up rooting for? That would be the Braves. Why? Because of Mr. A1, Fred McGriff, and Andrew Jones. He spent his first 12 years, obviously, with the Dodgers, grew up a Braves fan. So why he's obviously not from, Atlanta, not even from America. He said, he grew up a Braves fan. So to me, to have a guy that said, so we got 2 guys that grew up Braves fans, get a chance to play with the Braves, yep. And obviously he's gonna be the closer. But for me, give me Kinsley Jansen, another Braves fan who gets to live out his dream of playing with them Bravos.
Oh, look, I gotta be honest and say that to me it's Kyle Wright, because I mean he pitched well in the World Series. I said, hey, he deserves a chance. I'm like, we've seen this story before. Everybody said this. Kyle Wright's got the stuff. He's got the ability. He just hasn't been able to put it together. So you say, okay, maybe he's got a chance to show a little something, and maybe he'll start. No, I mean, Brian Snicker came out yesterday and said he's in the lead to get that final spot in the rotation. Like it could be hit. So I've been impressed with him. He's come out and taken those minutes. Sometimes you say, okay, you could kind of self-evaluate. Ben, you know how this goes. You have a great little stretch like that in the World Series. You go, all right, was that just a fluke, or do I actually have confidence in what I'm doing now? And it shows in spring training. Like he might actually have confidence in what he's doing and maybe turn the corner and can fulfill some of that promise people see. So I'm excited about Kyle Wright. He's impressed. And it sure seems like with a week to go until they get started, he's going to be the 5th starter. So I'm going to say Kyle Wright. That's take 3. We do it each and every day. This time we'll come back. David Waters, Gators Breakdown, will join us. We're talking spring football and the Florida Gators with him next. Here's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Monday. Spring practice is going on all across college football. Certainly, Billy Napier, new sheriff in town in Gainesville, starting to get things underway. A lot of expectations about what he can potentially be able to do. And joining us here from Gators Breakdown, David Waters joins us here on 3 and Out as Florida also with their Pro Day today. What was on display there for the Gators at Pro Day, David?
Yeah, it's a lot different than it did last year. Florida had the star power last year of Kyle Pitts and Tyler Trask, Kadarius Toney, 8 guys drafted last year. Now, if you fast forward and jump forward a year, you're only really looking at probably 3 players that are for sure going to get drafted for Florida, in Kyer Elam, Damien Pierce, and Zachary Carter. So, much different than it was last year for that team that won the SEC East last year. Go forward a year and, a disappointing season. And also now will probably be, as far as numbers go, a disappointing showing in the NFL draft there. But, Kyer Elam, probably that borderline late first round, early second round grade for him. He did a lot of work at the combine, didn't do so much today. Damien Pierce, ever since the season has ended, has kind of maybe shot up the boards just a little bit more. Gator fans can definitely share their thoughts on how much Damien Pierce should have been used even more last year, and he was not. So he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him from his college years, and really had put up some impressive showings there at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine as well, maybe looking a little bit faster and more agile than people remember. And also Zachary Carter, probably, as far as Damien Pierce goes, probably 3rd, 4th round grade, probably the same for Zachary Carter as well. Had his best season, and he decided to come back for one more season at Florida. Helped lead the team in sacks there, along with Brenton Cox there. So not a lot of star power, not the same star power we were talking about last year, but a few guys there that can still make their mark in the draft this year.
David, you mentioned Kyer Elam. I've seen some mock drafts that have him in the first round. How does he compare to some of the other great Florida corners we've seen come out of Gainesville to the NFL draft over the last decade?
Yeah, I'd say probably much better size than somebody would say, Vernon Hargraves was the first round pick. I think a lot of people were probably hitting on his size a bit. Not so much Kyer Elam, and also a student of the game. His dad's a coach. He's been around the game for a while. Kind of just and lived up to the expectation there. Played a little injured last year, and I think that probably hurt his draft stock a little bit. Todd Grantham's defense the last couple of years also didn't do much favors either there as far as what they were asking those cornerbacks to do. But I think Vernon Hargraves was probably one of the highest names going there for that NFL draft there. And I'd say Kyer, the more cerebral. I think the basics are a bit better, faster. And I think just being around the game a bit longer, and also I think his size will also just kind of, he had a 37.5-inch vertical, let me see, I think a 4.2 shuttle there, hit an unofficial 4.39 40. So maybe like a tick faster than that 40, but I think when it's all said and done, he still could sneak into that first round.
David, how was Billy Napier been like, just making the rounds when you're talking about a day like today? Obviously, he wasn't, the head coach of Florida last year, but I kind of see some clips of him talking to the scouts, talking to the GM, talking to the head coach. How has he been navigating his first pro day of Florida?
Yeah, Ben, it's kind of something different, too. Vernell Brown, who you know very well, introduced Napier to the NFL scouts and stuff that were there, and Napier kind of just gave a speech or whatever. Kind of a lot of people were saying it's kind of the first time they had seen that kind of a welcoming to the event from the head coach there. So that was probably the biggest difference there. And also, as you said, then just kind of making the rounds and talking to everybody, which every coach does that, but kind of the whole, here's what's different. Here's the head coach at Florida now, an announcement and speech, kind of just the spill of what, the University of Florida is about there, and the NFL history and everybody that Florida sends to the NFL draft there. So that would continue, I said, this year with not as many numbers there, but you could kind of tell right away that Billy Napier may be taking a different approach when it comes to almost every opportunity he gets to share what the University of Florida can do and be about.
And obviously spring ball as well. What's the latest out of Gainesville?
Yeah, I mean, since I think last time we talked, guys, was the very, very start of spring ball. So if a lot of people missed it or whatever, Henry Jones decided to go through 2 spring practices and go ahead and transfer out of Florida. There, it could be a good sign there if you think, Anthony Richardson doing almost about as good as he can do, bouncing back from that injury last year. No doubt in my mind right now, he's the quarterback leading the charge with Jack Miller there. Probably a little closer behind him than I think maybe some people thought, but I still think it's pretty clear that it is Anthony Richardson's team right now. Florida's dealing with some injuries, reported injuries there from the tight end position, and that's a position Billy Napier really likes to use a lot. We use two tight ends a lot in some formations, a lot of 12 personnel, in dealing with a couple of injuries that's being reported right now from Nick Elsmith and Jonathan Odom there. So Billy Napier, we won't get to speak to him again till Thursday, so hopefully we get some more clarification. Florida will have their first scrimmage on Thursday as well, so we'll get to pick his brain, hopefully about some of the reported injuries there and how the team looks in their first scrimmage as well. We move to the other side of the ball, and DeJuan Black, Ventrell Miller, starting linebacker, probably will be the starting linebacker for Florida. Missed pretty much the whole entire season last year. He decided to come back, but he's taking some classes where he misses 2 days of practice a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, only practicing on Saturdays. That does open up DeJuan Black to get more playing time, and he's really taking advantage of it, filling in there for Ventrell Miller. So you might see Ventrell Miller, DeJuan Black, Derek Wingo at that linebacker position, all on the field at the same time. And then up front, Gervon Dexter, I think, going to come around to really live up to that 5-star billing. Hard to believe it's his third season already. Ben, I know you just recently had a conversation with him as well, and one player that I think is kind of living up to that expectation as spring practice rolls along.
How has a guy like Sean Spencer really helped a guy like Javon Dexter in such a short amount of time?
But I think, honestly, man, just that relationship and his experience. He sent people to the league from his time at Vanderbilt and Penn State, coached in the NFL the last few years. And it's really just a lot about technique. Ben, we have to remember, Gervon Dexter's still kind of new to the game of football. Didn't really start playing football till late in his high school career. Has been able to beat everybody pretty much based off of his physical prowess. And now it's really just getting the technical aspects of it. And Spencer knows what it takes to get to the NFL by coaching it the last couple of years as well, having some successful players at that level. And now can share that knowledge with Gervon Dexter. He says, look, Dexter's in the film room all the time. He's in my office all the time. I got to kick him out of my chair just so I can get in my chair and watch film. There. So it really seems like also maybe an approach of learning how to play the game of football. That's what Gervon Dexter needs the most. He can't rely on that physical presence all the time. You need to play smarter. You need to learn how to use his hands a bit more. So Ben, that's where the improvement from Gervon Dexter will come from.
A guy like Corey Raymond helping the DBs. I mean, Mike Peterson helping the linebackers. We just mentioned Sean Spencer, Captain Chaos. Man, talk about that attention to detail. Corey Raymond is considered the best DB coach in the country, snatching him from LSU. Mike Peterson played at Florida. We talking about DeJuan Black, Ventrell Miller, and Derek Wingo, and we just mentioned Javon Dexter with Captain Chaos. Talk about that attention, the detail these guys getting at their relative positions on defense.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, that's what this team needs. We saw, Florida was one of the leaders in penalties last year. A lot of those were on defense as well. So those guys just need to play smarter, have that attention to detail, especially on the back end. Florida has not been able to live up to that DBU moniker in the last couple of years whatsoever. Now you got Corey Raymond coming in, and Ben, once again, just kind of technique and attention to detail. You got Jason Marshall, the 5-star that played a lot last year as a true freshman. Him coming in now and kind of going to be that experienced guy on the back end there, and he's going to be probably that cornerback one as a sophomore for Florida. So Florida's used to that. Corey Raymond's used to young players coming in, but now it's really, as you said, Ben, just an attention to detail that I think these guys really missed the last couple of years. And then more than anything, from Sean Spencer up front to Corey Raymond to Mike Peterson to Bateman there, both of those guys at linebacker, Florida really needs to get physical again. They lost that for whatever reason the last couple of years. It wasn't a big point of emphasis under Dan Mullen. Benefits me, and I'm a defensive coach. That's where I'm starting at this spring. This team has got to get tougher mentally. They got to get tougher physically. And more than technical aspect and athleticism, this team has got to get more physical. And that's probably the biggest thing I think Florida really needs to make up from what they've lost the last couple of years.
David, finally, we're seeing some preseason, spring predictions for the SEC. Georgia, obviously the team to beat, the defending champs. Where do you think Florida should be ranked here in the preseason in the SEC East?
Guys, I go back and forth on that a bit. I think if you still look at roster talent, Florida's still above Tennessee, Florida's still above Kentucky, Florida's still above South Carolina. So if you want to look at talent aspect, Florida's still should be second behind Georgia. But we know, as we saw last year, that doesn't always pan out that way. So my thing is, how fast can Billy Napier help it gel together, that talent gel together? Now, of course, nowhere near Georgia's level, but better than what they showed last year. But, I think you have to look at the quarterback position and how much better play they can get from Anthony Richardson, because I think now with South Carolina getting Spencer Rattler and then Hendon Hooker coming back for Tennessee, and I think, there's two quarterbacks right there you're going to look at in the SEC East that might peg those two teams above Florida. So I really go back and forth on it, because quarterback's the most important position on the field. But overall talent, Florida still has that edge versus those other teams. So it's really about Billy Napier getting that buy-in and getting that transition at a speed to where Florida can compete. Because, they got to hit the ground running. Utah game 1, Kentucky game 2, Tennessee game 4. That's 3 games right there in the first month of the season. We're going to learn a lot about this Florida Gators team.
David Waters, Gators Breakdown, our guest here on 3 and Out. David, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Hey, guys. Thank you.
David Waters joining us here on 3 and Out, as Florida in the middle of spring practice. Also, their pro day taking place today in Gainesville as well. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on this Monday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you're with us. Thanks for making us a part of every day. Pro days going on. Obviously, one last kind of dress rehearsal before the draft is upon us for a lot of these guys. I know Dion called out some of the teams that weren't at Jackson State late last week or over the weekend, but pro days obviously a chance for guys who maybe are on the fringe. Because we talk about this a lot. I mean, they go to pro days all over the country. I mean, how many guys are invited to the combine? Like 300. So you have more guys out there that are draft eligible, obviously, that didn't go to the combine. A chance for obviously NFL scouts to go hop around and see some of the guys they maybe have some interest in.
Yes, and I know, BJ, me and you go back and forth when you talk about the pro days and the combines. I think the pro days is the ultimate. The pro days is where you get to show off a little bit. The pro days is the fields that you've been running around for the last 3, 4, sometimes 6 years, depending on if you got an extra year with the COVID year. You start talking about being able to say, look, this is my test. This is when I say, okay, I'm going to put everything I've learned, everything I've done, all the weights I've lifted, all the the football I've watched, all the knowledge I've gained, all the wisdom I've gained, and I'm going to put it on display, and I'm going to live with the result. I know too often at times we so result-driven. No, that's as fast as I can run. That's as high as I can jump, both up and out. But when it's over with, you can say, man, that's it. Because I don't think people understand when you talk about, man, I want to go pro. Most guys don't get the opportunity to go pro. Most guys are not going to play in the league. But it's something about walking in your weight room. It's something about walking in your locker room. And there go your teammates. Because
just for clarification, when you have a pro day, it is essentially the drills you see at the combine.
Yes,
but you're doing it on campus, or kind of walk us through.
Well, no, it is some of the drills you see at the combine. Like when you see the thing to where you see the receivers running down the middle of the field and they turning to catch the ball. You don't do that. You don't got enough time for that. It's breaking down. They're trying to break down certain things. Are you going to do the L drill? Yes. For me, I had to do everything. I did the L drill. I did the short shuttle. I did the 40. I did the vertical. I did the broad. I did the bench. And you do it. You get a 15-minute individual workout. I actually did a 30-minute individual workout. So when certain guys working out, I was doing it with the Cincinnati coach. Then I did another 15-minute workout. But you got what you guys don't see with the pro days is you don't see your former teammates who still got to go back to college coming to you saying, hey, listen, boy, you're doing good, man. Just they're motivating you because sometimes you forget you represent what they hope to become. They're looking at you going, dude, I just played with this dude. I just practiced with this dude. I just prepared with this dude. And this is his moment. Jamal Lewis was at my pro day. How do I know? I go and get something to eat after. He comes up to me and say, good job, Troop. I'm like, good. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. What am I going to say? But I will say this. It's the culmination of of everything you've gone through to get to that point. Most of my teammates Carlos Perez did not get invited to the combine. I don't think Kelvin Kino, because some of those guys didn't get invited to the combine, right? And what happens is Darrell Lee didn't get invited to the combine. And John Lamar, a lot of guys I play with didn't get invited, but they got a chance to go out there and do their pro day. It is the ultimate to me because you walk in and you're real nervous and you hear the music playing. Do you hear Rob Glass, the strength coach telling all he said, listen, this is about them today. So if you ain't got on orange and blue, back the hell up. That's every GM, that's every head coach, that's every scout. I appreciated that because sometimes we play so much on the people watching you. You go, no, they here to watch us. And that made it jump. So when I'm getting ready to do my jump out the gym, True, you remember that. They're saying, because you forget, we rooting for each other in life, man. Forget football for a second. So it was fun. And I think too often at times, listen, me personally, I care nothing about a combine. A combine is a requirement that certain guys feels too much fear to go out there and do it. Now, your pro day.
I mean, are guys generally more confident and comfortable at their pro day than at the combine?
Yes. I mean, it's as simple as playing basketball at the rec and playing basketball at your house. You taking the same shots, but you feel more comfortable when you at your rim because you shot on it. But at the same time, too, when you watching your former team, because listen, every year you watch. My freshman, sophomore, junior year, I'm watching all these other guys, Lito and Riche and all these guys go. And now when it's my time, they said, come on, True. Come on, Gus. Come on, B-Mac. And it's that saying, look, man, the better y'all do, that's going to be, if just say 30 coaches came with us, that means all 32 going to come depending on what we do, because that's what it really is. You always want to get that. You always remember where you got that great thing from. Best steak you ever ate, you remember where you ate it from. You might can't get them on it, man. I was at this place. So that's what it really is, regardless if you get drafted or not. But I just remember two things that stood out. One, John Gruden drove up from Tampa to work me out, and he did not get a chance to. That's how crazy it is. John Gruden is getting pushed back. Two, I look up in the stands. There go my mama in the stands with her little dog named Powder, brand new little Maltese, right? But my mother said the reason why she sat way up in the stand, she wanted to see the whole thing. And she goes, that's my son out there. All these people came to see you. And she said, I ain't want you to have no distraction. Mind you, I wake up in the morning and I get ready to go up to the freaking facility, and there go the dog with his sleeping on my pillow next to my mama looking at me like, don't come in here with all that noise. But I it's so humbling to even think about it to this day, because number one, never had to play, never had to get out there. But then I'm talking to all these coaches, I'm talking to all these, I'm talking to people from like the Gainesville Sun, and you can hear the appreciation they have of you as a person more than a player, because you never big timed them. You never told them I don't want to talk. It was always that mutual respect from everybody. I'm seeing people that have nothing to do with the football team athletically. I'm seeing my academic advisor, Jason. I'm seeing Miss Ann Hughes, the academic. I'm seeing Tony, and to me, they out there saying, because you don't realize these people, man, they fall in love with the person who just happens to be a player. That's how I feel, because when I'm in their office saying, Dr. Seaman, I got to get out of this class. He said, well, you can't get out of my class. How you going to not take my class? Well, I got to stay eligible. So I just look at the culmination, but I will say this. Once they say, good job, and that's it, it is the biggest you've ever had. I mean, I don't know how fast I was eating at dinner, but because my agent said it's on me, but I'm ordering everything. I'm like, let me get this, let me get that.
From the standpoint of the evaluator, right? Mm-hmm. The NFL coach or GM, is there an element of them wanting to see you at the combine because you are out of your comfort zone, or once everything starts, is it basically all the same and they're just there to see the student athlete?
Yes and no. Yes, they want to see you, BJ. I mean, they flew you in the one spot, but I didn't understand leverage until I got to the combine, because when my agent said, Joe Siegel says, listen, man, you don't got to do anything. He says, why? He said, because Kellen Winslow ain't going to do anything. The problem is, I said, he ain't know about Ben Watson, the freak. He ain't know about him. But it was one of those things, Kevin, you go off through. I said to myself, look, man, it took me 4 years to put it together. Freshman year, I just got raw talent. Second year, okay, it's starting to click a little bit. Junior year, I got humbled with Ty Tober. And my senior year, I said, I'm ready. I don't care who it is, what it is. Problem is, I'm 21 years old. I got an 18-year-old quarterback named Chris Leak. I had to protect him. My confidence level never, ever matched my ability. I say that all the time. Ability's up here. My confidence level down here. No matter what nobody said, my confidence level But when I walk into my facility, for my pro day, when I heard that music, and you got your teammates coming up to you, saying, "Boy, you been eating? Boy, you looking kind of thin." Just saying all the kind of things to you. You realize this is why you come to Florida, man. This you come here because it's prestigious. I mean, Willie Jackson out there watching us saying, "Hey, Ben, I'm trying to look like y'all." I said, Willie, you about 15 years older than us. I'm pretty sure they ain't looking. But at the same time, I had so many guys in the league that came back, like Gerard Warren, Alex Brown, and they telling you how proud they are of you.
That's awesome.
And to me, that's what it's about. Then I will say this: David Jorgensen, I bought his scooter, and it cost $1,000. I gave him the down payment of $100, and I told him I'm gonna get it back to you. He's at my pro day, and I will say I did kind of big time with, man. I'm focused, man. Really? You want the money now? So, David, if you out there, man, follow me, man. That business and gravy, man. We'll try to get that cheese. But it is great stuff. I still owe. Listen, David, I paid all your money back to BJ Bennett in transportation and meals. So I paid it back, I think.
First it was you, then it's me.
Hey, I'm off the hook now.
Well, producer Jim was no longer on the show. He hit me up and said, just tell Kevin I want my Bennett. Kevin said the statute of limitations just keeps going.
But you have I was looking at the pro day schedule. They pretty much go through early April.
Yeah.
I think Florida's was today. Florida State's is tomorrow.
Yeah, and I will say, pro day has become its own real. Like it used to be when I did my pro day. It wasn't no camera. Now, man, it's a full-fledged event. They use that as recruiting. Guys get their own little shirts with their names on the back. They get a little video. They probably it's gonna get to the point. They probably gonna be selling pro day gear. Would I buy it? Probably not. I wouldn't to go on sale. I might get to 2019, maybe in 2029. But I'm happy for those guys because, like I said, when you understand how precious it is, that go Mike Tomlin right there. Mike Tomlin had hair when he came to see us. He wasn't even the head coach. It was Bill Cowher. Now, ball, right? I'm telling y'all, it's crazy. Butch Davis was the head coach of Cleveland back then, came to see. So all I'm saying is when Mike Sherman is sitting there in the hotel telling me, Ben, if you still there at 20, we going to get you. And then he'll get up and sit with somebody and say, Ben, John Fox, you still there at 30, we going to get you. I'm not going to say y'all lied. I'm going to say you didn't tell the truth, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But the Titans, man, I appreciate y'all. But at the end of the day, every teammate, every trainer, every equipment man, a help staff, compliance, I couldn't have did none of that stuff because all those people are out there watching you that day, and they all clapping you on regardless of what you do.
We've got more to come here. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, going to join us in about 30 minutes talking draft with him. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Monday. A lot to get to here on the show. Of course, everybody weighing in about the Oscars. I don't even know who won anything. Do you?
Nope. I mean, if I'm
it was
being
all
honest,
about the smack.
it was all about
heard around the world.
It was all about the smiggity smack. I will say this: there is professionalism, there is poise, there is restraint, and then there is Chris Rock. I will never know how he kept his poise and all that, because all I'm telling you, BJ, is let me tell you something. Love Will Smith. If I'm hosting the Oscars, if I'm hosting anything, and I get slapped like that, Nella Louise Edwards, Molly Troop, and Cora Bell Williams. Listen, Will Smith, I'm telling you right now, I'm officially diving on you. We gonna be fighting with our three-piece suits on. Ain't gonna be no smiling. I'm gonna beat the hell out of Will. He slapped me like that. No. I mean, when he did, I said, "Oh, he just went, oh, that looked like it hurt." And what? And Chris Rock gonna say, Will Smith just slapped the hell out of me. Yeah, and we saw him. But Chris Rock, man, shout out to him, man, for keeping his poise. That Netflix special is gonna be beautiful. And if him and Will Smith parlay that thing into a movie, I would not be surprised, Kevin.
That was just so weird because, like, I did not watch it live. I saw the replay, but it was like, at first, when somebody said, you start going on and you see all the reactions on social media, like, he did what now? You're like, okay, it was a gag or something. And then you go and get the reaction. You watch the whole thing, the lead up. You're like, that is that fake? It's like, is it just playing around or what is it? And so, like, I think a lot of people, then you like see Will Smith like just losing it, and he's like, keep it out your mouth. It's like, okay. And then Chris Rock kind of stands here like, I kind of don't know what to say right now. But I mean, as a comedian, I think, as you said, I think the comedian at the end of the day goes, all right. So if you don't like our joke, you can come on stage. One, that's not going to happen. Two, we better have a whole lot of Will Smith material around the comedy world for the next little while.
But I think, like you said, the fact that Chris Rock, it kind of happened, and then he just moved forward and hosted the remainder of the show. I mean, it was remarkable.
And Will Smith got a reward, now.
Oh yeah. No. Will Smith finally wins an Oscar for best acting. King Richard, which if you haven't seen, is beautiful. And he's always saying, I want to thank the Academy. Thank the Academy. You better go over there and thank Chris, because if I'm Chris, I'm looking for you. If I'm Chris Rock, I'm looking for you right now. The hell?
Ben Troop is on team. Stay ready.
Yeah, team looking for Will.
We'll come back with more hour number 3. Ryan Wilson will join us here, 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Final hour here of 3 and Out. We'll hear from Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, talking draft with him. What does he have the Falcons doing? Interesting pick he has in his latest mock draft. Also, what about the Jags? Has their situation changed any? Of course, you had, was it Brandon Linder retiring?
Yeah.
Kind of out of the blue for Jacksonville as well. So does that change some of the thoughts there in Jacksonville? We'll talk to Ryan Wilson about that coming up in just a little bit. But fellas, Final Four is going to be insane. Now, my bracket challenge presented by Coach's Corner, mine is done. I'm just going to have to cry in the wings with everybody else there at Coach's Corner. But there are 5 folks that have a chance to still win the bracket challenge. But for those of us who are out and done and our brackets are ruined, I mean, it's a heck of a Final Four. Championship tradition, college basketball royalty. I mean, Villanova, for a non-quote P5 basketball school, has multiple national championships. Had the big championship over Georgetown and Patrick Ewing. Won it just a couple of years ago. One of the more magical finishes we've seen in a national championship game. And then you have Duke, North Carolina on the other on one side. Coach K's last season. We all know about the Tobacco Road rivalry that those two have. We all know about the distaste that they have. North Carolina already ended Coach K Day there at Duke, the final home game at Cameron. Thought they were going to meet in the ACC tournament, ended up not happening. But now some people are saying this is the biggest game in the history of the rivalry because they've never played in the NCAA tournament. This is the Final Four. So the winner's going to play for a championship, and the loser eliminates their rival. If you're North Carolina, you end Coach K's career with a Tar Heel L. I mean, it doesn't. This might be. This might be one of the biggest college basketball games we've seen in the last 15, 20 years.
It's crazy. I mean, it's truly crazy because, as you said, I don't know that most people kind of first reference would think Duke, Carolina have never played each other in the tournament. Now, there's a reason for that. They're normally high seeds, and Christian mentioned earlier, I'm sure every time the tournament's laid out, you don't put them next to each other. Because you don't want to have a game for the 4th time potentially in the second round of the tournament. But still, never in the history of these two programs have they met in the NCAA tournament. And then they do, as Coach K is ending his career. Sports always delivers the storylines, the drama, the theater. And if I'm North Carolina, I'm especially frustrated at this. Not that I'm in the Final Four, obviously, love that. But I thought I closed the door on Coach K. I went into Cameron Indoor, if I'm North Carolina, and said, nope. And won by what, 15 plus? With all the emotion, all the history that was on display, and you won that game, and you thought, we did it last ever meeting with Coach K. We did it in Durham. We did it in Cameron. That's an iconic win for North Carolina. Let me ask you guys this. If Duke wins on Saturday, is anybody remembering that game? Nope. Is anybody talking about the win in Cameron?
No, it only adds. I mean, something that Kevin said. First hour, all these Hollywood scripts being written, right? I mean, if you Steven Spielberg and them this year, my goodness, I mean, you be like, man, which one you gonna do? You gonna do Stetson? Or you gonna do the Braves? But the thing about this is, it's very, 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 very seldom that the greatest college rivalry gets experienced on this stage. You see it during the regular season, you see it during the tournament, maybe. You don't see it when everything's on the line. We make this thing about Coach K when UNC got more national titles in basketball than Duke. Now, Duke got the prestige because Duke has that national appeal that everybody goes, everybody, somewhere Drake. Drake.
Well, no, but you're right. Like, everybody has an opinion on Duke. You either love him or you hate him. There's no like nobody's sitting the fence on Duke.
No. But think about this though, Kevin. I mean, I think sometimes, right, things just happen the way they're supposed to happen for the betterment or the continuation of the sport when this iconic figure is moved on. Right? When you talk about a guy like Bobby Bowden, they give you Jimbo and he won that natty. Now, it didn't continue, but it shows what it is when it's like, hey man, let me show you what being coached under this guy does for you in recruiting and playing and so on and so forth. When you talk about a team like Duke, though, what makes Duke so polarizing is people talk about Duke. Most people have never seen Duke play. Most people, I don't know. They know about Duke. They know about Coach K. They know about UNC. That's it. Most people, that is their college basketball existence. They don't know anything else. But if UNC gets this done, they are doing this for so much more than UNC. Coach K got to go, right? because BJ, there are certain things that you don't want to live off ever.
I think it's a hard ask to say you better win in
just
Cameron
imagine this. Just
and
imagine
then
this.
in the Final Four.
Listen, in my last college football game I could ever watch was Florida and was Georgia and Alabama. You know what that's gonna do to me the rest of my life? I don't want to be here. This is it. I can't watch no more. The last thing I seen was Georgia win. No. I need a rewind. I need a redo. I need to move on. If Duke wins, right? People gonna act like Duke ain't, because people act as if Coach K never loses. This dude ain't never lost.
It's setting
sickening.
up. It's setting up for Duke to win the national title.
And BJ,
is it not?
But listen, I saw Casey Hayward, who went to Vanderbilt, on Twitter talking about, yeah, man, we gonna get them boys this time. Eric Ebron, who went to North Carolina, said, what do you mean we? We beat the brakes off y'all the last time. Look, I'm gonna say this again. I'm from Georgia, so I root for the Hawks and the Falcons and the Braves. And
are you turning this into a Georgia fan?
No. This is what I am turning it into, though. A lot of it, you BJ. When I first met you, you know what you say to me all the time? I said, "Yeah, man." You be like, "Fake. That's fake. That's not real." A lot of this stuff is not real. Okay. When I go to people and they got these jerseys on, I'm like, what you doing? You're fresh out the pack. You're not a real fan.
I'm a Duke fan, fake.
No. You're a Duke fan. This is when you know you're a fan. When the numbers are peeling off the jersey, because you had that long, not this. Yeah, man, Coach K, he about to spell his name. I can't. That's right. Nobody can. Not even him. Because at the end of the day, we want Duke to lose, not because we don't like Duke. It's because that's exactly why. We cannot stand.
But do we not all see it coming? I mean, this is the movie. This is the book. Coach K's iconic career. You have the low before the high. You played North Carolina in Cameron. It's going to be a great send-off.
No.
It's a wonderful moment.
BJ,
and they get blown out.
No, BJ.
Then the stars align.
When LeBron
and they rematch in the Final Four.
When LeBron won his first championship, before it was 0-0, they saying, a young boy from Akron. They already done did the commercial. Are you prepared to watch Christian Laettner for 24 hours? I don't want to see that. Oh, it's the outlet pass against Kentucky.
Doesn't Coach K already have a couple commercials or something like
that?
Well,
hold on. And think about how forced that is. Hey, how many times they had to go, Coach, could you do it again? We're asking you.
I'm just saying it's happening. I think most of college basketball is rooting for North Carolina, but I just think it's happening. It's
No.
Okay.
There was a commercial back in the day with a guy wearing an Ohio State sweater. His lady had on a Michigan sweater, and they kissed. And they said, without college football, this wouldn't be disgusting, right? Without college football, right? This is disgusting. I don't want to see it because at the end of the day, right, when I got to the league, you know what guys used to say about your teams you went to? They say, yeah, he said, y'all boys went to Florida and Georgia because y'all couldn't play basketball. What's going you? I went to Duke. And did you play? I ain't played. Because that's what it be. It's like this. Duke's supposed to be this, the highest of the high. And North Carolina has more chips than them. Like, they have more. The most iconic player at Duke is what? Christian Laettner, right? The most iconic player in North Carolina is Mike. And we act like, do it for everybody else, North Carolina. I don't want to see this. You know why, BJ? Because we'll never hear about it. I already got to deal with Georgia winning that championship. They're going to say we won 2 national championships. Oh, my God.
That is true.
They're going to say, man, we won 2 of them. What? They're going to say, what you mean? We won 2 of them. What you mean we? We won the basketball and won the football and Magic Stafford won the NFL. I say, y'all didn't want to listen. Y'all had Anthony Edwards, didn't even make the tournament. Well, Dominique Wilkins, if Dominique Wilkins do a tribute to Coach K, I'm a loser. Because BJ, don't nobody want to see that.
To beat them twice in the middle of this kind of magical storybook finish for Coach K, I'm just saying, seems unlikely. Now it will be the ultimate double flex if you're North Carolina and you go into Cameron and say, nope. And then you meet in the Final Four and say, oh, dream season, end with a national title. Nope. I'm just saying, if you don't like Duke and you're rooting for, prepare yourself.
I mean, but this could be, like you said, it could be a heck of an end to the run either way for Coach K. You win, you get into the Final Four. If you beat North Carolina, that's big. And you potentially would have to beat Kansas for a national championship. And Bill Self, who's got, obviously one of the top, 5 or 6 coaches of this kind of era of college basketball out there. I mean, this could be quite the finish if they pull this off. And again, I'm with Ben. I would love to see North Carolina do it because I'm over the Duke thing. It's fine, but People say that, like, why are you hating? I'm not hating. I said this on the show Friday, Ben. I can appreciate what Coach K has done. I can appreciate what he means to college basketball. I can respect the job he's done. I do not want him to win. I respect the Yankees. I respect the Pinstripes. I respect the fact they got 27 championships. I do not want them to win the World Series. The end. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing here with Coach K. So, good. To me, I don't know how you even build a better storyline than this for a Final Four game than what we have between these two teams. And it's interesting because Hubert Davis, a North Carolina guy, taking over, like everybody says, you don't want to be the guy following the guy. Like, you had the guy, what was it, Matt Doherty and so on, filling in after Dean Smith. Nobody would fill in for Dean Smith. Then you had Roy Williams, former North Carolina guy, come back. He takes the program to heights, wins a bunch of ball games, national championship. And he retires. And now here you are, Hubert Davis, former player. No worry. Just you got some shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Well, we might take a little step back. Mm-hmm. And there was thoughts that maybe North Carolina going into the ACC tournament might have been a bubble team. BJ, you heard talk about this. Oh, they're okay. I mean, they quietly were 21-10, and people are like, they're not even in the top 25. Like they were a good team. I think a little bit above 500 in the ACC, were not in the top 25. And they get in the tournament, and they make a little run, start looking real good, start looking even better. And now here they are in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
I know people know the program North Carolina, but outside of a fan of that program, I don't know how many people thought Hubert Davis, year one, going to take this team and run them into a Final Four appearance, much less
he's done a great job.
Bump off Duke and Cameron and then have to play Duke again. I mean, to me, as much as it is about Coach K, throw some love to Hubert Davis. I mean, you stepped in for a legend.
Yes.
And that's the same thing. I mean, John Shire's going to do the same thing next year at Duke. You're stepping in for a legend. Nobody wants that.
No.
Like, you're never going to be able to live up. And here he is in the Final Four, year number one, doing a tremendous job. I mean,
the expectations were just overwhelming.
And I got to say this, too, though. Paul to talk about ACC is down. Oh, man, these other conferences have really, really caught up to the ACC. I don't want to hear that. Arkansas was the lone SEC school, right? No, the ACC is not down. I mess with BJ about it all the time. The ACC, when people say they beat up on each other, they really do in the ACC. But who's in the Final Four? Oh, that would be two blue blood ACC schools.
Miami was in the Elite Eight.
And Miami was right there. But look, I will say, Coach K is the epitome of, consistency. He has that love-hate. I mean, how many people known throughout the world is just Coach K? Well, Coach K, I ain't even gonna try to even attempt to say his name or try to spell it. But I'm just saying, Kevin, I do agree. North Carolina, sometimes you're doing something bigger than yourself. Go out there and get it done.
I went and looked ticket prices for the Final Four. You want to get in? You're going to be way up, and you're going to start at about $450 for one.
That's all? I'm sure that'll go.
I think that's going to go up. If you're thinking a couple of friends,
unless
family,
people are holding out for the national championship on Monday.
I don't know. I think early in the week for them to already be at $400 in the high sections. Good luck getting a ticket to that one.
I mean, you're witnessing.
Once again,
the best basketball rivalry.
Once again, I know we got. Listen, we got two lists. We got the list that if somebody gonna sign you in and we got the money list. If you got court seats to this, got a little cheese in the bank. Counting your money, but you got a little cheese in the bank because they gonna put $20 grand, $50 grand. Hey man, that's Jay-Z and Beyonce, man. That's Chris Rock and Will Smith down there.
I don't know if they'll be sharing seats.
Somebody gonna have to sit in between. Maybe I don't know. Maybe like Reggie Miller or somebody be sitting in the middle. Maybe Michael Jordan be sitting in the middle of them. Who knows?
Just keeping the peace. They're watching the basketball game. But yeah, tremendous ball game upcoming in the Final Four. Kansas Villanova ain't going to be too shabby either on the other side. We got more to come. We're talking draft when we return. Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, joins us. What are the Jags going to do at number 1? Better yet, what are the Falcons going to do there at number 8? He's got an interesting choice. We'll chat with him next. Here it's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Draft coming up at the end of April. Still a lot to be decided between now and then. Joining us here from CBS Sports, his latest mock draft with the Jags and Aiden Hutchinson there at the top. Ryan Wilson joins us here on 3 and Out. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
And I know that the Jags have got options. They have spots that they need, and Brandon Linder retires today along that offensive line. Does that change the thinking at all about Aiden Hutchinson? I know a lot of people have been saying recently, put it in pen, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go that far. They made some moves this free agency. They re-upped Cam Robinson as well. So the offensive line is certainly in better shape than it was, and I think knowing that and that the best player in this draft is probably Aiden Hutchinson, or at least someone on the side of the ball, it probably makes sense now that they bolster that offensive line to some degree, that they would go out and get the best player. And Aiden Hutchinson, in my mind, is that guy, and we'll see if that's ultimately what the Jaguars think. But I don't know if you would target another lineman here just because you might have trouble finding some place to put him. That said, you can never take too many offensive linemen when you have a franchise quarterback, and obviously that's what Trevor Lawrence gives you. But I think as we sit here, and a month ago, back in late January, I had Ike Ekwonu, the offensive lineman at NC State, is going first overall to Jacksonville because they hadn't made those free agency moves yet. But I think when you re-up Cam Robinson, you have Brandon Scherf, you could possibly look in other directions, and I think other directions include Aiden Hutchinson, even though that will make 3 edge rushers in the last 4 years as first-round picks for the Jaguars. I still think you do that.
Hutchinson makes a lot of sense. We're seeing that projection a lot of places. But, Ryan, is there a chance the Jacksonville Jaguars just go in a totally different direction? I know some have said Trayvon Walker. You're seeing some Kyle Hamilton talk, or do you really think this is pretty simple at this point as we get closer to the first pick?
Yeah, Trayvon Walker is a popular name this time of year. And the thing I always try to remember is that Trayvon Walker has been Trayvon Walker throughout the college football season. Nothing's changed in terms of how he played for Georgia in 2021. What has changed is that the media has sort of gets more involved as we get closer to the end of this thing, and that's understandable. And even the front office guys and the head coaches in the NFL, the staff, they get introduced to these players. They've known about Trayvon Walker a lot longer than we have in the media for sure. But I think he is what feels like a media riser. Now, he had a fantastic season, and you have to be able to differentiate what he was doing as part of that Georgia defense that was so dominant, and what he can do when he gets to be an NFL player, when he doesn't have Jordan Davis and Devontae White and Nakobe Dean around him. That said, I mean, there's no arguing with what he put on tape, number one, and there's no arguing with what he did at the combine in his pro day. He ran a 4.51 as someone who's 6'4" and 275-ish. And those are freakish numbers. And he plays with that sort of freakish athleticism. Now, does that mean he's going to be the first overall pick? I haven't heard that in talking to teams, and I'm going to circle back and dot those I's and cross those T's. But he wasn't a name that came up initially. I think he's a top 10 pick all day long. I think Aiden Hutchinson is more polished at this point in his career. But that doesn't mean Trayvon Walker can't end up being the best player in this draft. And that's the thing. I mean, a few years ago, Chase Young went second overall, and everyone was like, oh, that's a slam dunk. Chase Young hasn't played like the second overall pick, and he could certainly do that. But the point is that this is a crapshoot, man. This is certainly more art than science. So you have to sort of have some finesse in terms of how you approach these things, and with that understanding as you go into it.
Ryan, you have Kenny Pickett going number 8 overall to the Atlanta Falcons. When you think about the fact that now you got a guy like Matty Ice moved on to the Colts. Kenny Pickett, I mean, you look at what he did last year for Pitt. Now it's all about his hand size, which I never really get into that nonsense. I mean, how do you think he'll be a fit, for a team like Atlanta who's moving on from a legend?
Well, here's the funny thing for me, and these mock drafts as I do them now are a mix of what I think should happen and what I think teams will do. And in terms of these quarterbacks, this is what I think these teams will do. I have one first-round grade on these quarterbacks, and it's Matt Corral at Ole Miss, and I have him going in the mock draft that came out this morning at the bottom of the first round. I know some NFL teams like him better than the other quarterbacks. I know some NFL teams like Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the first-round pick. I think he's more of a second-round talent. And, again, that doesn't mean anything. Russ Wilson went in round 3, and he turns out he's pretty good. But if we're looking at this latest mock draft, and you talk about Kenny Pickett to the to the Falcons, I think that does make some sense in that Kenny Pickett is ready to play. They signed Marcus Mariota for 2 years. Marcus Mariota last started the football game in 2019, so it's not like he's going to be the slam dunk starter. Never mind 2 years from now, but even throughout the course of the 2022 season, Kenny Pickett's probably the most NFL ready of these quarterbacks to take the field right now. Small hands won't matter if you're playing indoors and you wear those gloves, which he's worn forever. So I think you're right. I think that's not a concern. It's just sometimes he doesn't see the entire field when you watch him play, and he misses some throws that could be big time throws that end up being checkdowns. Again, not the end of the world, but for someone who's played for as long as he has at Pitt, you'd like to see more of that, and that's just my opinion. So Atlanta has some things to work through. They have Kyle Pitts, and that's about it as a playmaker. The offensive line has some issues. The defensive line has some issues. So it wouldn't be an ideal landing spot like, say, Mac Jones to the Patriots for Kenny Pickett, but I mean, that's why you draft these guys early. You want them to come in and change your franchise.
I mean, for all those reasons you just mentioned why the Falcons shouldn't take a quarterback, because they have so many holes, and they just got Mariota, I guess, is kind of a holdover. Do you think the Falcons actually look quarterback, or wait till next year when the crop of quarterbacks is expected to be a little deeper? I mean, I can't imagine this is a Falcons team that thinks they're going to be picking in the middle of the first round next year.
Yeah, and that's the question. That's absolutely the question. And you guys know this as well as I do. Even if there is supposed to be a good quarterback class in the following year, sometimes teams just don't want to wait, and they will sometimes do things that they may not do if they were in their right state of mind. When I think of Kenny Pickett going this high, it reminds me, fair or not, of Daniel Jones getting drafted so early for the Giants. If Daniel Jones had gone in the second round, no one would have cared that he struggled the way he struggled. Not entirely his fault, by the way. I mean, the offensive line has not been good. They drafted Saquon Barkley early, so they weren't allowed to address other needs, and so on and so forth. The coaching obviously has changed. The general manager has changed. So all those things have played a part. But when you draft someone that high, the expectations are that you win right away. So are there other areas of need that the Falcons could address? Absolutely. In other mock drafts, I've had them taking Kyle Hamilton. I've had them taking Travon Walker, who may no longer be there at 8. I've had them taking an edge rusher. So there are all sorts of positions, especially in the defense, that they could address and probably get better value in terms of that number 8 pick. Because these quarterbacks, like I said, you just don't know. You could get Josh Allen, you could get Mr. Trubisky, and that's the gamble you take. But that's also the gamble that's sometimes worth taking when you have to have a quarterback. You can have all the premier edge rushers in the world. You're not winning playoff games unless you have a franchise quarterback, and that's what all these teams are chasing.
How unpredictable, Ryan, do you think the first round is going to be overall, whether it's the quarterbacks, maybe the offensive linemen go in a hurry, or the wide receivers, but how unpredictable or volatile do you think the first round could be?
That's a great question, and I think it may – I hesitate, but I think it may be less volatile than what we've seen in recent years, only because the quarterbacks, I don't know if teams are going to be willing to trade up for them. And I'm very curious to see what happens in the top 10 with those picks, because we have Carolina at 6. They desperately need offensive line help, but they'll probably take a quarterback. We just talked about the Falcons at 8. The Seahawks at 9 need a quarterback, unless you think Drew Lock is the answer. So I'm not even sure that there's going to be a lot of movement among the top 10 picks, because I don't know if a team wants to give up a lot in terms of draft capital to move up to get a Malik Lewis, for example, who may or may not be Justin Fields. And the Bears traded up last year to 10, I believe, to get Justin Fields, who at this time of year was starting to, in the eyes of the media anyway, see his draft stock slip, which seems silly, but that's the business that we're in, and then sort of the stuff we have to deal with this time of year. But to answer your question, I don't know if a team's going to trade up. I think after that, maybe after pick 10, things might start to get a little crazy, and I think they might start to get crazy around positions other than quarterback. Wide receiver might be a position you see a run on. Cornerback might see a position you see a run on, as well as edge rusher, offensive lineman. And I think quarterback might actually – it wouldn't surprise me if 2 quarterbacks end up going in round 1. It also wouldn't surprise me to see 4 go. And the reality is I only have one guy, Matt Corral, as I mentioned, with a first-round grade. So top 10 picks, I'll be interested to see how that unfolds in terms of movement. And then after that, I think things get a little crazy.
Ryan, you see what guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson has done for the wide receiver position, being NFL ready, coming into the National Football League. You mentioned Chase Young playing like the number 2 overall pick. What young position group in the National Football League is helping these current crop? What is going to help a position group coming into this draft, whether that be defensive ends, D linemen, quarterbacks? What position group in the NFL, the young guys, are helping current guys get drafted higher?
I think you hit on it. I think it's wide receiver, and I think this group of wide receivers is going to be another really good group. And part of that is just the way that the college offenses have evolved. These guys are running routes, they're running more versatile routes, and these guys are incredible athletes. Garrett Wilson at Ohio State, I absolutely love his athleticism, his foot speed, his quickness in and out of breaks. We talked to him at the combine, and I said, "Who's faster, you or Chris Olave?" He didn't hesitate. He said, "Chris Olave's faster." Well, the 40 time told a different story. And when you watch him play, Garrett Wilson plays a little faster. He reminds me in a lot of ways of Odell Beckham, and he could be a top 10 pick all day long. And the funny thing is, you mentioned Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson somehow, some way was the 5th wide receiver taken in that draft a few years ago. The Eagles passed on him to take Jalen Reagor, who still has a chance to be a good football player. But if we're redrafting that draft now, Justin Jefferson is probably a top 3 pick. And that just, again, reinforces that we don't know what we don't know. But I mentioned Chris Olave as Garrett Wilson's teammate. He's going to almost certainly be a first-round pick. He's probably the best route runner in this draft class. Drake London out of USC is 6'5". He's a high-point catch machine, and he's going to be special. Traylon Burks ran a 4.55 at the combine. I do not care. If you see Traylon Burks, if you've watched him play consistently, you know what he's going to run or thereabouts. He's still outrunning dudes to the end zone, and he does it in a way that reminds you of part Anquan Bolden, part Juju Smith-Schuster, part A.J. Brown. And if you like those players, then you might like Traylon Burks. Sometimes you can fall in love with those numbers, and I think we have to remember at the end of the day they're playing football, and we have to go back and look to see how they did play football. And I think Traylon Burks made himself into a first-round pick based on what he did in 2021.
Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, joining us here on 3 and Out. Ryan, I'm interested. I ask people who cover this draft and get involved in mock drafts all the time. When it comes to this time of the year, the combine's over. Football's been done for a couple of months. It's just pro days. And so not much of just on-the-field stuff is happening to change your evaluation. How do you parse through all the nonsense that's out there from teams and misleading and, kind of throwing lines out there to see if other teams will kind of pick up their interest? How do you parse through the BS, I guess, of pre-draft hysteria?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You mentioned teams. Most of the smoke screens come from media. And I think one of the pitfalls you can fall into is just reading Twitter and taking it as gospel, because it's not. And I found that out pretty early on once I started covering the draft. And for me to get around it is I talk to people I trust in the league, and I ask them straight up, what's the deal with this guy? What's the deal with that guy? And that's how I get to the bottom of this thing. Now, I can't get a report on all 300 guys, so I have to trust my eyes as well. So I watch these guys play during the season. I watch them play in January and February and go through their film. And I'm not a scout, but I can lean on scouts that I know who help me sort of understand what the things that I don't get. And so it's part me, it's part trusting people, and part ignoring what you see on Twitter, because a lot of the times, I would say 90% of what you see on Twitter probably either isn't true or it's some version of the truth that's much farther away from actuality than it should be. So at the end of the day, you got to trust what you know, and that's on me. I just can't go on what people tell me. My job is to sort of have an idea of these players, and I try to do that. But you're right, man. Things get crazy, and Travon Walker's an example of a guy who's made a move up draft boards, and I'm going to check in with my sources and see what they think. But he's a good football player, and sometimes you see it go the other way. A player, as you sort of know with the smoke screens, who's a good football player, and I mentioned Justin Fields earlier. Justin Fields was always the player that the NFL teams knew he was, and that I had a sense of who he was. I think a lot of that was media created in terms of whatever the issues were that he fell. I think he went to exactly where he should have gotten drafted in terms of where he went in the first round. Now, I don't know if he feels like Chicago was the best fit for him. It was tough going in year one, but I think there's a chance for him to get better, and there's a chance for him to be the best quarterback in this draft class. It didn't happen in year one because that was Mac Jones, but that's 1 year. Certainly a lot can change between now and 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now.
Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, our guest here on 3 and Out. Ryan, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, cover the draft. Draft coming up end of April. We'll come back, hear from Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football, 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on this Monday. Appreciate Ryan Wilson, Tony Barnhart, David Waters joining us here on the program as, again, college football always in the news with pro days and spring practices and, of course, the draft out there on the horizon. Also, spring training going on with the Atlanta Braves. There's a little bit more than a week to go, and it'll be baseball for real right around the corner. But about another –
Are you ready?
I'm ready. You've got about another week of games. I think they finish up on Sunday or Monday and then head back to Atlanta to face Cincinnati on Thursday. Looking forward to the title defense to begin. And the Braves are loaded. I mean, I think their bullpen's the best in baseball. Lineup looks pretty good. Will get even better as Acuna comes back, and starting pitching has options on the backside of that rotation. So Braves look to be in good shape as they get ready to start the season.
I look forward to it because at the end of the day, everybody's looking up at them Braves until proven otherwise.
Well said. Hawks and Pacers. Hawks are looking up at a lot of people. The Indiana Pacers are not one of them. What? The Pacers are 25 and 50.
They're going to get a winning record tonight.
We'll see if they can get a winning record tonight. We'll have it for you 7:30 this evening. We'll see you tomorrow. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network.